Welcome back to the channel, guys, and today we're going to be covering vehicles in Silica. Now, we already talked about infantry and how you can be the more efficient versus the aliens, but I wanted to take a deeper dive into vehicles, and I wanted to kind of go over some of the information that you might be seeing when you have the cheats on and you're playing the single player mode, to kind of give you an idea of what to look for and how and what all the symbols do you see in how as the formula works, so to speak. Now, before we start and jumping into the video, I want to talk about different types of damage that you can do in Silica with your vehicles. Now, first we got Ricochet. Ricochet is the weakest form of damage, and it's pretty much self-explanatory. The round will bounce off and the bullets will bounce off as well that you're shooting at the target, and it also depends on the armor of the unit and at which angle you're shooting. Next, we got Impact, which is a projectile is destroyed by the impact, transferring kinetic damage to the target. And then the third one, we got Explosion, which is a projectile explodes on the surface of the hit target and exploding and causing a splash damage to the everything around it. And that's usually going to be your yellow numbers that you're going to see. So the initial impact is your red numbers, and then the yellow is your explosion. And then the last one, we got Penetration. Projectiles penetrates the target and explodes inside it, dealing massive damage to it, and it does not necessarily cause a splash damage. So it basically just initial contact and then penetration. Now, it is also important to know that it varies with all the different types of projectiles. For example, bullets will only have ricochet and impact damage. Shells will have ricochet, explosion, and sometimes penetration. That would be your hover tank, or that would be the heavy armored card as well. And impact damage if the shell is ricochets and is deformed. Voltarian projectiles, however, don't have ricochet and just cause impact damage and sometimes explosive damage, but that usually happens very rarely. Another thing to keep in mind is that all the projectiles and the type of damage they're dealing, it really depends on the angle. Yes, you'll be surprised. In Silica, there are actual formulas that the game uses to determine how much damage and what type of damage you're going to be doing based on the angle and the distance that you're going to be using. Now, we could go over the formula, but if you guys want to know more about this formula and all the stuff that you guys see when you have cheats on, please let me know in the comments below, and I will definitely going to do a deeper dive in the formula to kind of show you stuff in what each symbol means that you see on your screen. Now, we are going to go over some of the symbols as well. As you remember, we got 5 different types of symbols that you end up seeing on your screen, and the green one usually is going to be the penetration. The blue circle is going to be your detonation, and which is usually just explosion on the surface. And then red X is your destroyed. It's your standard impact, no explosion. And then tilde, yellow tilde, is going to be your deformed projectile on impact. Hit before it was deformed and then bounced again. And then, of course, we got the white star, which is that represents a ricochet, which sometimes it does damage and sometimes it doesn't. So, and here we go, we got all this basic information to kind of know before we're going to jump into the video and see all these symbols that on the screen. And I also encourage you guys to jump in yourself and test these things out on the single player mode to kind of get an idea. And I'm sorry that this video is going to be a little bit longer than some of my previous videos. I know the last one was also kind of a little bit tedious in the longer version, but there was just a lot of information to cover and not a whole lot of ways to kind of explain it in detail in a short amount of time. So let's jump into the video and take a look at all the vehicles that humans got. Next up, we got vehicles, and you guys know all the time in the beginning of the game, what are the units that you end up fighting with against the hunter? That's right, quads. And as you remember, quads use that green ammunition, so basically kind of like the scouts as well, only they have just a little bit more penetration damage. You can see that we are doing a regular damage to the... Oh, no, I killed him. Let me spawn another one. I should have been going a little bit easier on him. Yep, we're going to do that right now. There you go. And the back takes extra damage. The legs takes reduced damage. And the tentacles and the face takes the regular amount of damage. So there's no penalty to shoot in the face or the tentacles. Definitely don't want to shoot these back legs or the very top, this armor. Sometimes they even bounce. So you want to shoot the back. Same thing goes with Behemoth. Behemoth is end up almost taking no damage to the claws. It almost bounces off too. You take a very reduced damage. The face is the same way. So it's almost like pointless to fight the Behemoth up front with this unit. You definitely have to hit that back. Same thing goes with the Scorpion. You take sometimes no damage due to the ricochet. And you have to go for that tail. Behemoth, I'm sorry, not Behemoth. Goliath is the same way. You could sneak up underneath him if you can without dying in one hit and actually do damage under the belly of the Goliath. But that's going to be very tricky, especially when they're on the move. And same thing goes to the Firebug as well as the Defiler. And then we got the Eye. Take extra damage there. But of course, with that amount of health and the regen, you probably not going to be ever fighting with this unit versus those two big units. And that should cover the quad. Next, we got heavy quad. Now, heavy quad is basically, if you compare it to infantry, it's like your rifleman. You do more damage and you use different ammunition. It's like your rifle ammunition compared to your regular light quad. You also take a little bit less damage to the legs, sometimes the bounce. And the most, of course, is going to be the back area or your face or the tentacles. Same thing goes with the Behemoth. However, the claw still can bounce a lot of your shots. And that's what you want to kind of keep in mind. Especially when you're fighting the Behemoth. It's always better off just to go for the back. Especially since you get the visual cue that you're hitting them. Same thing goes for the Scorpion. You definitely want to hit the tip of the tail. And any of these other ones as well. They basically worked exactly the same way like the other units. You just gotta try to get underneath that area. Same thing with these guys, just like we mentioned with the light quad. Pretty much the same exact idea. Top shots that bouncing off, weak spot the eye or the spores. And don't shoot in the mouth because that's gonna be reduced damage. And that should cover the heavy quad. Next up, we got light armored car. Now, obviously, you're not going to be really fighting a whole lot of crabs, you know, especially later on in the game with these type of vehicles. A lot of the main units that you're going to be probably seeing going to be Hunter, Goliath, Scorpion, and Behemoth. Same thing. So the right click of the light armored car uses basically the quad ammunition. We're talking about the green. You can tell by the green tracers of this weapon. You're still doing damage to the units. You just do reduced damage compared to if you were shooting in the face or in the tentacles. Same goes for the regular ammunition as well. When you get that pan and explosion, they definitely end up doing the most effective damage. Now, definitely watch out shooting the top part of the Hunter. Your shots, a lot of the times, will actually bounce off or do very reduced damage. As you can tell, we went from 227 to 98 damage if you shoot at the right angle. Sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. As you can rotate, like it penetrated and exploded, so they did 407. And then if we come around and shoot in the back, that does a lot of damage. Definitely want to fight in the back. Next up, we got Behemoth. Same idea. But however, with the penetration, we're actually doing more damage. And you just got to be very careful where you shoot, because sometimes it still can bounce from the top, especially, and not do as much damage. Scorpion are the same way. Some shot, as you see, 69 damage, and then we go to 171 depending on the angle that we hit. But you still want to try to hit the tip of the tail and the sides of it. Goliath is the same way. If you can actually see that. If you can see the spot and actually hit it, you do a lot of damage. You want to hit it from the side or in the back. Or even when they're crawling on the buildings, you definitely want to try to shoot for that. Same thing goes for these guys as well. Side, top, and then the eye. And that should cover our light armored vehicle. Next, we got heavy armored car. Now, this vehicle is using actually HE rounds, so it's basically your explosive round, not the same as any of the lighter units that we've been using. And their secondary weapon is also using like the rifle ammo, and it does a lot more damage, especially up close to small units as well. However, the regular round does insane amount of damage, as you can see by those numbers. We get a penetration and explosion as well from this round, and you really pretty much able to kill it almost 2-3 shots as well. However, if you do end up shooting in the back where the glowy part is, of course they're at full health right now, so we're gonna hit this one. Oh, I missed on that one. That one bounced. But if we hit in the back, you can pretty much one-shot him. And if I'm not mistaken, the same goes for the scorpions as well too. See, as I missed that shot and ended up bouncing off of it. I did not hit that spot in the right area. Right there, that was one shot. So as you can tell, with this vehicle, if you're aiming enough, like, and you can hit accurately in the tail, you can one-shot the Scorpion and Behemoth pretty much with this heavy armored vehicle. Let me turn up the moon just a little bit more. There it goes. And we turn the lights on as well, so it's getting nighttime. Now, we got, same thing goes for the Goliath. The weak spot is right there. If you can actually hit it right, you get that, it's the yellow text, but the numbers you see in the screen, that's usually the explosion damage. Right there. So we're doing 517 explosive damage to the leg next to it, or usually the units nearby it as well take explosive damage. So I gotta aim a little bit lower. As you can see, 21,000 damage. We're talking about 70% of the health is gone, or almost 80%, with one shot in the weak spot. So yes, they are a tough unit. You definitely don't want to hit the front as well either, because yes, you do damage some, but you don't do as much as you could have done on the side. So what you want to do, you would want to come up to the side right here, and that's what you would want to shoot. You want to shoot him right in that weak spot between the legs. And that's how you should be able to take care of the unit. However, of course, it's understandable that you're not always going to have that perfect shot, and most likely he's going to be charging at you. There we go. And same thing goes for these guys as well too. They take a lot of damage in the weak spot if you can hit it. And same thing goes for the Defiler as well too. 8,000 damage. Considering that they only have like, I believe, what did I say? 30,000 damage? I'm sorry, it's 30,000 health. Yeah, 30,000 health, and we did 8,000 damage with one shot. But I hit that armor piece, and that only did 500 damage. So when you guys are wondering why you're not hitting those shots or why they're not dead, that should explain it. You really got to know where you're hitting, and you got to hit that just right in some of these spots. It also depends on which way you're aiming to. As you can see, actually looks like I'm aiming up high, but the shot actually ended up hitting below right here. There you go. I would have had to aim a little bit higher for that. And there you have it. Heavy armored car. All right, next we got ourselves a hover tank. Now, with this hover tank, the round is also has direct impact and it can penetrate, and it also has explosive charge in it as well. So it's kind of like your heavy armored car, only significantly more powerful and faster. Now, sometimes, and of course as a secondary, you get the red tracers, which is your 50 cals. And of course, sometimes they will actually penetrate because it's a high caliber. And sometimes they can actually bounce off from the top shelf of the shell of the hunter as well. You just got to kind of get in the right angle. Now, it doesn't always happen. Majority of the times you will hit an impact. But if you end up bouncing and you wonder why it took no damage, it's most likely because, as you can see right there, the round just completely bounced and it actually went up. No, that one still ended up hitting. It's very it doesn't happen often. I'll try to get a clip of it if I can later on, and I will post it and add it to the video. But next we got the Behemoth. Same thing. You actually do a significant and a lot more damage to the unit itself, and you do get some shots that bounce out, but it's not very significant considering how much of them are actually in how fast you end up shooting. So but you still want to go for that weak spot if you can, and that's why it's always important to work as a team, because maybe while they're focusing on one target, you can still sneak behind and do 10,000 damage. So what that means that you could potentially one-shot an enemy Behemoth if you hit it in the back. So keep that in mind, though. We are in a controlled environment right now. Normally this might not be the case, considering that, you know, how far you're shooting from, or, you know, what the unit is doing. If they're walking towards you, you have no choice. You have to shoot in the front. But if you can't get in the back, definitely shoot in the weak spot. Now, of course, Scorpions are the same way. Some shots bounce off, as you can see by the numbers as well. We're getting like 30s and zeros, a lot of them actually. And then you can see the little red X's. That's where the shots kind of bounced off and went from the body and went onto the ground. But if you can hit the weak spot, as you can see right there, 368 damage. My round actually bounced from the tip of the Scorpion tail, and it basically depends on where you're shooting. So it's kind of like high risk, high reward, situation, because you could of course just keep shooting to the body and end up damaging. But if you want to kind of go for that, very high damage chance and just kind of take it, like that one completely bounced as well. Actually, it penetrated, it seems. Oh no, that didn't penetrate. That just was an impact. But right there, that was 4,700 damage. That was not a weak spot. Now, however, that was 7,200 damage. From my observation, sometimes when you're aiming with the tank and you think you're actually aiming straight, like the barrel doesn't aim exactly where you're pointing. It actually slightly below. So next we got our Goliath, and of course this is probably the unit they're gonna come up against a lot of the times. Right here, I just shot and the round bounced twice actually. One damage was for 354 and the other one was for the 0. And once again, bounced for 354. Now, is it worth shooting the weak spot? Here we go. I shot the weak spot. We got a penetration and we got explosion off of that on the impact. And we did 24,000 damage. 24,000 damage out of 30,000. That's insane amount of damage for this type of units. Of course, you're going to keep shooting in the face or in the body, and you will only do 4,300 damage. But there's still potential of you be able to hit in a weak spot and end up killing them. Like I said, try to aim a little bit higher than when you're actually trying to hit. So instead of hitting and pointing right at the weak spot, try aiming a little bit higher and see if you actually end up hitting with that. So here we are going to try again. 343. Of course, that's what I'm talking about, being high risk, high reward. Sometimes you end up hitting, sometimes you don't. Maybe he's charging into you. And when they do that initial roll, and then when they come out of the roll, when they're charging you, they kind of jump up and raise their legs up in the air. That's your chance to shoot the belly. That bounce completely went under, even though it looked like I was aiming directly at the weak spot. So try to aim slightly higher. Like I said, it's still very controlled. It's a controlled environment and kind of hard to hit. And it looks like I'm hitting just above that spot. Can still use the machine gun to do 300 damage. You can see the health on the bottom just going down super quick. Let me see that again. Nope, still too high. Can I come around on the other side? Maybe the right side is a little bit weaker. And nope, still nada. So at this point, it really depends, you know, which way they're positioned. Can you see the belly more than if you were fighting the mid front? If not, even like here too, 748 damage. So maybe it is better off sometimes shooting them in a claw, but that only does 2200 damage compared to 4000 to the like the back legs as well. See, that also bounced 351 damage. We got impact, but we don't have a penetration. There you go. We actually penetrated and we got a good contact, and we did 16,000 damage right there. And of course, same thing goes for defilers. If we can actually hit it, but you want to be from farther away. Try not to aim at the face if you can. Aim for the weak spots. Because we did 397 damage to the face versus 6,000 damage to the lower part, not the weak spot. For us to we hit the weak spot, we definitely have to be farther away. And maybe we can actually hit it right here. 6,000 damage again. Now remember, these units only have 30,000 health too. 6,000 damage. Got to get that right angle. Try to get it a little bit higher in these rocks right here. 6,000 damage. There we go. So that must be us hitting the actual weak spot. Oh, no, never mind. That was 6,500 damage. So we were not hitting the weak spot. Can we say the same thing about the Colossus? 873 damage. 6,000 damage. That must have been a weak spot. 1,100 damage. Yeah, so that was contact damage, but that was not a penetration. 6,000 damage. So you definitely want to get that penetration and initial damage as well. 15,000 damage into the weak spot. That's quite a bit considering that the unit has 150,000 health. 15,000 damage is very good. Wouldn't take very long for a hover tank, a single hover tank, to actually kill this unit. And there you have it. We got ourselves a hover tank. Next, we got everybody's favorite railgun tank. Now, railgun tank doesn't have any machine guns. However, we do have rockets, which is basically your Balterium rockets, deep red color, and it also has the explosive charge in it as well. So as you can see, I'm shooting these hunters right now, and both of them actually taking about 400 to 500 damage from the explosion itself. It doesn't, I don't believe it has, yeah, it doesn't have any impact damage. Actually, never mind, we do have impact damage. We did 980 damage to the on impact, and we did 800 on the explosion. So it's very different. It really depends on where you're hitting. Now remember also, the explosive rounds, if you end up kind of damaging the weak spots, you actually end up applying that damage multiplier to the explosion stats and your initial contact as well. As you can see, some of the damage is 500 or 600, but if we can actually hit that weak spot, we're actually doing a lot more damage. And of course, we got our main cannon as well. That one does a lot of damage, and it doesn't really take long for railgun tank to kill any of these bigger units. However, you do have to watch out for the reload time. You only get 3 shots when you're using this vehicle, and then you have to wait. Now, here we're shooting a behemoth straight forward. Now, because this is like an energy weapon, a lot of the times it's going to ignore the armor, and it just kind of penetrates and end up pretty much doing enough damage to one-shot a lot of these units. As we can see right now, we did 9,200 damage. So even if you did end up hitting the weak spot, which we'll try to do it right here, right now, we did 9,500 damage. So that's our base damage as a Balterium ammunition / energy ammunition. Now, if we hit the tail, which is obviously going to be a lot harder to do, to hit that very small target, especially if you're farther away. You definitely got to watch out. So at this point, if you're using energy weapon or Balterium ammunition weapon, you want to just go for the regular body shots, since a lot of the times armor is being ignored anyways. However, if you are going up against a Goliath, what if I told you that using a railgun tank, and if you end up hitting the weak spot, you can one-shot the Goliath? Now, I know it sounds crazy, but it is possible, guys. I can promise you, and I'm gonna try to get a clip of it right now. And I'll try until I get it, and I will definitely gonna share with you guys. 30,000 damage, boys. Let's see if we can do it one more time. Right in a weak spot. Waiting for this body to disappear. 22,000 damage. Almost 23,000 damage. That was a total miss. Oh, just shooting just under. $30,000 damage, boys. That's insane. And let's see how much damage we can do to the Colossus. As you can tell, even the top shelf is penetrable for our railgun tank. You only did 6,500 damage. That's still massive compared to any other unit. Regular body shot does almost 12,000 damage. Now remember, there's no explosive damage from this. It just goes straight direct damage. And the weak spot, 29,000 damage. 29 and a half almost. So that's 1, 2. So we would say 4 or 5 shots and it will kill. And that's only if you're using one railgun tank. And you gotta hit the eye if you can. 3. I would say 5 shots. 4. Takes time to reload. Of course, as we know, guys, a lot of these units, they are gonna be very far away, so you gotta kind of be good at aiming the railgun tank. Yep, 5 shots, boys. That's all it took to hit in a weak spot. And there we have it. We got ourselves a railgun tank. Well, there you have it, guys. Hopefully you found this video useful, and we covered a lot of the ground units and what kind of type of damage that they do and how it usually indicates in the game as well when you have cheats on. And I hope you guys like this video, and if you guys want to see more stuff like this in the future, please let me know in the comments below. Once again, guys, I wasn't able to do this without our favorite developer, Drum, and his help and all the information that he was able to provide for us in this video. Hopefully you guys found it useful, and I also got something in store for you in the next video. What if I told you that alien buildings and some of the human buildings have a weak spots? Stay tuned for that, guys, in the next video. Until then, I'll see you guys.